G'day listeners, welcome to Bar Karate, the sailing podcast. My name is Jordan Spencer and it's that time of the week where I get to talk to some really cool people in the world of sailing. But unfortunately, I have to share that mic duties with my two idiot mates. So let's bring them in. First off, welcome to the mic, Mr. Brett Perry.
Greetings, Exalted One.
BP.
Passion, commitment, bar karate is all of that. It's 6 o'clock in the goddamn morning, for Christ's sake. What are we doing?
We're having fun, BP. That's what we're doing. Let's bring in the other bloke.
He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr.
Mr. Nick Bice.
Well, here's our differences right here, gents. We've got a night owl and a couple of early birds. And Jordan, I think we'll be on fire this show. Like that intro you just did was impeccable. It was awesome. You'd obviously been awake all night practicing.
Yeah, that's Great. It. That was my worst one ever, wasn't it? I know.
Yeah, that was a shitter. But
I didn't even hear it.
I've been awake all night, just preparing, mentally for the car bash disease control full drive tour coming up, which takes off today.
Yep.
So there will be no social commentary from me for a couple of days.
Fantastic.
Not due to not wanting to, but due to being on bloody Vodafone and you go 2 kilometres out of the city circles and you've got no coverage. So, yeah.
I don't know how you do that, Bice. With the vehicle you run, like a Land Rover Defender and Vodafone together, it's not a safe combination.
Now you mention it, as a matter of fact. No, we're off today raising money for sick kids. It's actually been a big week in that regard. We've got a big bull coming up in June. And basically, we've got a big flag to fly following in the shoes of Snowdy being in charge of the big ambulance this year. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't tell Snowdy, but our key goal here is just to take the piss out of Snowdy as much as we can.
Well, perfect audience for it too.
He's used to that. He's used to that.
Yeah. So he's going to be listening to this Monday morning and go, why the hell is everyone taking the piss out of me?
Well, let me discuss something here for you boys. Okay. I haven't slept all night because I've been so excited about this episode because I honestly believe we are about to record the most important and the best episode Bar Karate has ever done, and this will be the most widely listened to episode. I'm 100% certain of that.
I tend to concur. I was looking at a few stats last night related to our guest and related to his latest project, and I think you're right.
Well, not only because of our guest, who is probably the most important person in the history of modern sailing, the person that's had the most influence on modern sailing, but the topic we're going after we've finished with our guest. We have some, if you in any way an event, managing a class or leading a class or making decisions on class or involved in ECHLs, we're about to reveal some of the most incredible information that will change the whole world of ECHLs right on this show. At the end of this show, when we go to that, we have a dossier of evidence that is going to blow the world apart. So there you go. We are. BP is looking at me going, "What?" BP.
Yeah. This is a surprise for you, BP.
We are doing this. I've left you in the dark on this.
Can I just say nothing is a surprise? Nothing. You can't surprise me anymore on this show.
I've left you in the dark on this, so we get a genuine reaction from you. So we know because you're the most close to this, and so the fact that we've got this information and you haven't is going to shock everyone.
A little bit of keepsies off now, is it?
Just for genuine reactions, bud. It's not
2 a.m. this morning.
Yeah. All right, shall we kick this in the guts? Let's get on with bringing our guest into the show. And we are genuine that we think this man may be the most influential guy in modern sailing. We've been discussing his influence for the years that we've been doing Bar Karate. And we've always wanted him on the show, but we wanted to make sure it's at the right time. And right now, everyone's in their homes listening. We've got a huge audience. So I guess without even doing the build-up about his whole resume, I think I'll just pull him straight into the show and we can bring it into the show. Andrew McDougall, welcome to Bar Karate, mate.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm also having a sleepless night knowing that I was going to go on the most important podcast ever. So I'm a bit nervous, mate.
No,
Butterflies have subsided.
Not yet. No. We have to do something about that.
No, we won't go into the numbers that listen, so that'll make it.
Normally we. Yeah, that's our mums. Normally we do have a remedy for the butterflies, but it's probably a little early, and we don't quite have the Bar Karate rum ready just yet. So, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Amac, if we could start before we even mention the word moths, how did you start in sailing, mate?
Oh, my mum said there's a class down at the local yacht club, and why don't you go down there? From a very unsailing family, and okay, why not?
Right.
And off I went, and that's it.
And what was that class?
I was hooked. Sorry, what was that?
What was that class?
It was a club. It was like a sailing lesson in herons, I think it was.
Oh, wonderful.
It was blowing the dogs off chain, so we didn't go out, and we had a theory lesson. And I thought, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Got straight up.
Just give him a few tips.
First day.
First day.
I hear you, brother. I hear you.
You're wrong.
So during the week, I went to the library and I pulled out every book on sailing, on hydrodynamics, aerodynamics, everything. And I was an avid reader at the time. And I just went through everything. And so the next week we went back and it was, again, blowing dogs off chain. And I thought, he really doesn't know what he's talking about. So that was my introduction to sailing. It was a guy who didn't know what he was talking about anything. So, yeah, I just did a bit of sailing on this heron with some guy who also didn't know much about sailing. And so, yeah, it was baptism with fire. So I bought a sailfish with my paper round money.
Mm.
It's a strange thing, paper round money these days. But, bought the sailfish, and it was like I'd just come home. It was because I didn't do any sport. I didn't do any of the football guy thought I was playing cricket. The cricket guy thought I was playing basketball, and so I just didn't go. So it was I was a skinny little runt, very sickly as well. I had constant bronchitis at the time, well, for my whole life up till then. And it was like, I don't know, it was just this whole new world. And I sailed every moment I could. I remember I got pneumonia, and the doctor said, you can't do anything. And Mum said, you can't go sailing. And of course I just snuck out and went sailing, and it was better in a week anyway. So it changed me physically, it changed me emotionally, it changed me mentally. It was a really rapid transformation of this person who was not physical at all to a very physical, different person, and within a year.
How old were you at this point?
That's the question.
13.
It wasn't just puberty, was it, mate?
Could have been, I don't know, but no. It was also the fact that I rejected all drugs. I mean, I was, the doctor was filling me full of drugs because I was so sick, and I just said I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, right.
And I haven't taken antibiotics since, except for one time when I was actually dying. So I thought I'd better. So,
wow.
So it literally changed your life.
That's fantastic.
Literally changed my life. It's. I mean, if you could do a time frame thing of, from that day I started to a year later, you wouldn't think it was the same person.
Well, I'm going to go one step back and go back to your mum when she said, go down to the sailing club. Did she actually have any knowledge of sailing or sailing clubs at all?
No, nothing.
So she's just gone, I've had enough of this. Get out of the house. Get down to that bloody sailing club and do something, you lazy so-and-so. She has actually instigated something quite remarkable in her own way without realising it.
Yep. No doubt.
Well, thank her for us.
Yeah. So
I will.
So at 13, this is when all this happened. And then at 15, by 15, you're into moths and you build your first boat because, let me guess, no one was building them, right? Is that what was going?
Yeah. No, I remember my dad built me a shed out the back that was 11'6" long because that's the longest he fit between the tree and the fence. So
Right.
it was lucky I was still thin at that point, so I could get around it. And there was not a nail and not a screw, not anything in this boat. It was all toothpicks and glue and ply and all those things that you built boats out of those days. And it was, I think the first one I built was 5 pounds lighter than any other moth at the time. So I was instantly into minimising weight. You know, I do calculations of, you know, if I drilled a whole lot of holes here, it's going to take me 3 hours to do, which and I've saved, you know, X amount of grams. So yeah, that's worth it. I'll do it. And it was, you know, a complete obsession. From the whole thing was an obsession.
Were you to jump into building your own boat at 15 is pretty daunting, or you just thought you had the right skills, or it was you had a good tech studies teacher, or your dad helped you? How'd that all?
My dad was allowed to saw the wood on his circular saw because I wouldn't go near that, and well, I wasn't allowed to go near that because my sister had lost 2 fingers on it. So that was not the place to be. So that was the only thing he was allowed to do. There was no help.
Doing on a circular saw.
So sorry, I missed that. But anyway, he probably gave me 3 apprenticeships before I was 10 in stuff. He was amazing. He was just the guy that everyone came to in the street or in the area to get things fixed. He was just could make anything work. He could fix it. So I was.
Sorry.
Go on.
So it's in your DNA.
Yeah, it was in my DNA. I mean, it was just I just stood there watching him do stuff for the first 12 years of my life, and then
fantastic.
Yeah, I knew how to do it. It was just like second nature to do stuff.
Fantastic. I love
super
it.
Cool. Yep.
My youth memories of hanging with my dad is going to the hardware store every weekend and going, why the hell we always going to the hardware store? Now, that's where I live.
No, you're going there, it's like, they should sell sausages here.
Onions. Now
that was some foresight, Jordan. Let me tell you.
The other similarity you've got with Amac, Jordan, was putting in smaller screws into the boat you were building.
Oh yeah.
About that. Yeah.
And believing that I'm right about everything.
That was a weight saving thing, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Mate,
sorry.
When did you become good in the boat? Oh, actually, no, that first boat, was it a Scout?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, fantastic. I used to love those things. And when did you suddenly think, hang on, I'm pretty good at this? Like,
I think the turning point was my dad took me to he took me to the Australian Championships, and I actually led a race that first year. But I was really shit downwind, so I led the race around the top mark, and then just everyone went past. And so I came back from that and going, well, really got to work out how to go fast downwind. And so I just started experimenting with all these ways of of getting the boat on the plane, catching waves, rocking it, ooching it, all the legal things, but sort of trying to make it. I didn't really know much about legal and not legal back then anyway. But so the other thing was that I just started building rigs and building masts. I had a wing mast. I had over-rotating masts. I had all sorts of different. I had 5 different rigs within the second year, which so it was thinking back. It's crazy how much work I did. to make this boat fast. So
Can I ask an obvious question?
Who's this bloody little whippersnapper?
Yeah.
Old Mr. McPhee's been sailing the Moth for the last 30 years. And here you come down 5 rigs, your own boat.
You didn't have a girlfriend in those days, did you?
no, as much as I wanted one.
Oh, this is brilliant, mate. We love this. This is fantastic. So the tinkering's unreal. Keep going. We're into it.
So I think the turning point was the state championships. I think it was, again, the second year, the same year that I'd gone to the Nationals, some months later. And it was spread over 2 weekends. And the first one was the local club. So the second one was at Williamstown up near the city. So my dad had to drive me. And he did a gig on the committee boat and was out there. And we're driving home. And he says to me, how come you're so much faster than those guys? And that was sort of like the point where I went, well, fuck yeah, why not? And it stuck with me, that comment. It was like, well, why wouldn't you think I should be faster than those guys? It was interesting.
It's fantastic.
And you put that down to just finding the right balance, and that kind of has paved your future at that point in time, finding the right balance between boat, person, rig, sail, to be fast the whole way around the track?
I think what's really been the real driving thing for me is that it's never been about the journey. It's always been about the result. So whatever it takes to get there. So whether it be redesigning the boat, whether it be getting weight out of the boat, whether it be training, whether it be what have you, the only thing that has always let me down was that it was always about me and the boat. It was never about the weather. It was never about the tactics. It was always about, how do I get the result of this boat to go fast? How do I get the result of me being good on this boat? To make it go fast. And so it was, I've always been, and it's sort of not really a funny joke for me, is that I've always been the fastest guy to get to the wrong side of the course. So
Jordan knows about that.
I was going to say, there's plenty of them.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it stood me in good stead for where I've come to, in that what my job is to make boats go fast and make them reliable. And so, but that thing of going, well, it's all about the result, not about the journey. I mean, I love the journey. There was no doubt about it. But I was always focused on, how do I, I've got this race. Then how do I get this boat so it's going to be reliable? How am I going to get it so it's going to be fast? How am I going to get my body so it's working? How am I going to learn to get the technique to make this boat go? And so there was always this focus that created the balance, really, and it's simply that. And it's not that I don't think I learned the balance. It was just that focus on the result always creates a balance, I think.
Wow. It's some dedication, and when you contrast it with, say, someone like, I don't know, Bicey, whose approach is, I'll put my beer down and I might go for a sail now. Shows you the world. But you obviously, in that era of the moth sailing, which is the scow moths, you did end up winning a couple of Australian champs in 83 and 84.
Yep.
And if I said the word second to you, what does that automatically trigger in your mind?
4 races in the World Championships, which I remember so clearly, that cost me a World Championship, and it's just, just stupid. Really,
you've come so close to World Championships so many times. It's amazing, and over such a long era. But in this first iteration of your moth career, you had a couple of seconds at the Worlds in 84, 85. Was that a game changer for you? Just sort of looking at it on a world scale, did that spark some confirmation of your approach?
Don't know. I mean, the funny thing is, both those World Championships were in 83, 84. I believe that's when they were, if you say so. I can't remember.
84, 85, mate.
85.
Don't try and get past anything.
Yeah,
George.
83, 84 for the Australian champs, 84, 85, according to all the data.
Yeah, that'd be right.
Yeah.
So both those world championships were basically at a point where I was stopping moss sailing. I was into windsurfing, and it was like, oh, okay, another one. I mean, the last one was a German mate in Germany, funnily enough, called me up and he says, oh, you know that boat you sold me? And I said, yeah. He said, well, it's sitting in my garage of the house that I inherited from my uncle. It's 400 years old. My BMW is sitting next to it. The World Championships are in Switzerland, which is 2 hours drive from my house. And I've got a gig at the Olympics. So you can just come over and do it. And I went, oh, okay. And so I went to Germany and sailed the worlds in this borrowed boat. So it wasn't really... at that point, it wasn't really high on the agenda of sailing them off. So it's possibly why I did well, because it was not, I don't know.
That's the start plot of every abduction movie from Hollywood for the last 20 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Guys, can I just stay in this period for a second before you move on, Jordan? From 1970 to 1985, what was the major developments in the actual boat? Obviously, you were instigating most of that. What did you refine to take a boat from those early days through to that 85 period?
So what are you talking about? 80? So from scows to skiffs, really. That's really the period.
Okay.
Yeah. I think probably back in late 70s, I had this vision of about 6 different configurations for a moth rig, and I wanted to try every year. So it was like, I'm going to do a wing mast this year. I'm going to do a keel step mast this year. I'm going to have a stump step mast this year. And I just basically did that. So, and each one, it was just like, how do I make this work? And so it was a lot of mucking around trying to get each one to work. And what I discovered is you can make them all work.
Right.
I think the biggest thing back then was the over-rotating mast, which was really a wing mast, because you were just you were getting so much control over the rig by the rotation of the mast. You were effectively doing what we're doing now with the camber-induced, like the windward side is not as clean, but the leeward side is clean. Mm-hmm. And that was huge. So I really did. I seem to have a lot more gain in the rigs that I did than the hulls. I don't think I was the greatest hull designer back then. So it was really bad. And when I sailed after the 85 Worlds, I sailed one of the Pommy boats, and I went, holy shit, why didn't I have one of these hulls? Because my rig was so quick that I would have been like legs ebb.
Wow.
So it was all in the rigs and technique, I think. Rigs and technique. The hulls I don't think I was that great at.
Well, that's a good answer. So, so the aerodynamic thing comes back into it, Jay.
Yeah. Well, obviously, because, at that era, as you said, windsurfing became this huge thing, and there was so much evolution in rigs in windsurfing in that era, like particularly in the sort of early mid-'80s. And then you ended up forming a sail-making company, KA Sail, which still exists and still is ongoing, and you were right there through the forefront of that. Was that your job, your trained sailmaker? That's what you wanted to be, or did you just start mucking around and decided that sailmakers were doing it wrong?
The latter. No, I've probably built about 10 sails in my life myself.
Right.
That was under duress because my guy had gone home or something.
Yeah.
No, actually, just to correct you on that, it wasn't KA Sailor started in '85. It was Wild Winds, which was
Wild Winds, yes.
I do remember that.
Yes. We're all showing our age.
So I just actually left a job as an engineer with a company that made trams and trains, and just got connected with this guy who had this windsurfing company, Wild Winds, who was building hardware for windsurfers and wanted to get into sales. And his friend says, "Oh, you know how to make a sail. Why don't you go help him make some sails?" And we just started making sails. And I was still sailing moths. I was still I built myself a windsurfer, a race board, and built some windsurfing sails, and they seemed to be quick, and they started selling. So it was just do it.
So you're into the windsurfing prior to that, and that's kind of how the link happened also? Or that was your kind of just flown straight into it, and next thing you know, you're developing and being part of a pretty big brand that paved the way?
Well, I was into windsurfing. I was sailing One Design, the old Wally back then. Actually, some guy gave it to me as a debt to pay off a debt, and it sat in my garage for a year going, I'd never be able to sail that. That looks way too hard. And one day, a guy up the road who had a windsurfing business said, "Look, come windsurfing with me. Teach me how to race and I'll teach you how to windsurf." And I went, "Oh, okay, fair enough." And I got started with the Wallies, and that was a lot of fun, and really, really got into it, and just had a real blast of learning how to make these sails, these things, sort of almost foil. It was like really using the hydrodynamics of the board and getting it on the side, and it was really, really fun. And so I'd been doing that for 4 or 5 years before I got involved with Wild Winds, and but I hadn't actually made any windsurf sails at this point. So I've forgotten the question. What was the question?
Doesn't matter.
That was a good answer, though. No, basically you were into windsurfing, and then once you joined, it just devolved from there, and you were involved in the windsurfing scene during the like a very high evolution time.
Yeah.
From the mid-'80s onwards.
I think one of the things that was really interesting about that time is I learnt to sail a moth once I got a windsurfer. That was the big change, and that's why suddenly 2 Australian championships came, and those 2 seconds, which just vice world champion, as the Germans call it.
Keep going.
So just the skill of sailing without a rudder with the windsurfer. Suddenly you just apply that to the boat, and it was like, holy shit.
I think I agree with that comment. It's something that if you have sailed a windsurfer, you've got a bit more feel towards the way a boat steers. So that's definitely true.
Yep.
And this phase, though, when you moved into the sail work, this is where your first creation that changed the world of sailing comes about, where you developed a software model for designing sails, which if people, there's probably more sails designed under that software model than any other sail, I suspect. A lot of the small lofts use your software. I don't know if the big lofts have their own proprietary software, but your software is still in use today for designing sails.
It is, and it's actually the other way around. It's only the big lofts that have the software.
No,
the small lofts, it's too complicated, or it's too expensive, or something. I don't know.
Or there's pirate versions out there.
So I think for a good period before we got lots of brands, probably 70% of windsurfer sails were designed using the software. Yeah.
And now, and into modern boats, it's the sails that everyone's using designed on your software. That's what I guess. That's the first major thing that you created in the world of our sport.
I guess, yeah. It was just like one of those things where I hated crawling around the floor, drawing shit
with a baton.
with a baton. And I was like, oh, how can you do this better? And it started off with a spreadsheet. And I wrote some stuff to connect to AutoCAD, and then I worked out how to bastardize AutoCAD so that we could print long things on one of those old printers with, the perforations down the side.
Yeah.
And, it was one byte in the AutoCAD executable. You could just change that and it would print continuously. So we could print out the panels, and then it just went from there. And sort of, again, was I a software engineer? No, but I wanted a result, so made it happen.
Didn't like the way they were doing it, and took it on.
Well, yeah, because we'd actually got some samples, and some demos of various sale design software, and it was just like, what are they thinking? This is not going to work.
There's a familiar tune here, guys.
Well,
yeah,
there's a question that has to be asked on this theme, is that what areas of interest have you got that are in the back of your head that you're going to move into next? Like, I want to warn a few industries who are about to be revolutionised.
You're doing it wrong, guys.
Have you ever thought about making beer?
Podcasting.
I often think about, how many lifetimes would I like to have to try all the things I'd like to do.
Wow.
And, I reckon it's 100 that I can think of right now of all the different, I'd like to do that. I've, got an idea. I just should patent that and go run with it. No, don't do that. You've just, I can't think of one specific industry, but I do. Yeah. It's so much to do in this world.
Yeah. I'm guessing you don't
inspirational.
Yeah, I'm guessing you don't watch much TV.
No, we actually didn't have TV when I moved out of home. It's three of us, 2 girls and me, I think it was, of course. And we decided to rent a DVD. What do they call it?
DVD.
Video thingy, and
Video thingy.
and we had it for 3 months. And I didn't watch one movie because it was just, I don't know.
Well, that would have had to have been a VHS videotape, shorty, video recorder back then.
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah. That's the one.
Well, they were terribly, terribly confusing to use.
I don't know. I never tried.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, so with the crossover, it's undeniable when you look at a moth rig, the crossover between sort of windsurfer race sails and moth rigs, with the camber inducers, the deep bluff pockets, probably not the leech shapes anymore, or the leech openness of the leech, or the way the exit of the leech works. But, there's quite a lot of similarity. Do you think the time in the windsurfing and the sail design there influenced your thought process into the moths, or is it the fact that they're the same speed, or what? Well,
both. I mean, there was that period of it was actually later. So I stopped sailing moths. So I came back to moths in '95, not sailing them, but building some sails. And it was just some guy, Tim Webster, asked me to build a sail. And I go, I don't know anything about moths anymore. It's been 10 years since I've sailed one. And he convinced me to come up and have a look at his sail. And so I did, and I said, look, I'll make a sail. But, I was really just going, it's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to get this right. And it's going to take me too many iterations. So I made a deal with him. The first sail was $800, and if it didn't work, I'd make another one for $400, and that's it. No, I'm not coming. I'm not recutting. I'm not doing anything else. If it doesn't work, bad luck. You've lost your money. And he went on, and Emmett Lazich bought one as well, which Tim was really pissed off about. And they went on to win 15 of the 18 races at the Worlds and Nationals in '95. So, and I was just gobsmacked that. And I was gobsmacked when I looked at Tim's sail in the start of how bad it was. I'm going, this is just worse than what I had 10 years ago.
Was that due to like using the big cams and all those sorts of things, which are obviously very popular early 90s in the windsurfing days. Was
Big
that the
camps?
kind of
No.
sail we're talking about, or?
No, never. I've never done the big cams. I actually left Ben Severn to do all that, and we talked a lot about it. And he says, "Yeah, I've got these big cams, but don't let anyone know. They don't make any difference."
It just blew it. Ben Severn's a young South Australian lad. We all know Ben. So.
Yeah, well, he worked for me designing sails.
Of course, that's right.
In KA for a couple of years.
Yeah.
It was great.
So where do you think the dominance came from in that first run?
The loose head was the big thing. But I think that,
Twist.
the twist and the really loose head, and to the point where people just looking at them going, what's wrong with the sail? My sail's, floppy in the top. It doesn't, and why is it like that? And that was the difference. And that was, obviously you got to get a lot of things right to get a sail working, but that was this major thing. And to the point where I think we even backtracked one year because it had so much backlash on people going, it looks really bad, and I was, I can't do this, But we had, we were making clean skin sails for a lot of the World Cup guys because they were just faster. And they just put their logos on them and off they go. So that was a big thing.
So obviously mast bend is critical for that, and also downhaul. Had you ventured into the masts a lot of that stage, or was it still just very much in its early days?
We were playing with masts, but we weren't doing anything radical. Just slightly softer top, slightly stiffer top, slightly stiffer overall. We were buying masts from Italy, I think, at the time, and we didn't have a lot of. We weren't big enough to be controlling that, so we needed to be able to sell sails to people who had other masts, so we didn't really go down too much of that path.
See, it must have been pretty inspiring, though. You suddenly dominate the world of moth sailing again with your sails, so obviously you get sucked back into sailing moths.
Yeah, well, it was another 10 years before I got sucked back in, and it was just that. 5 years. I got back into the narrow skiffs. I sailed the narrow skiff.
That's right. You got third in the 2001 Worlds.
2001 Worlds, yeah. And that was a blast. And it was just really surprising to me how quickly it just felt natural. I mean, it was like no difference. Yes, it was a bit more unstable. I had to learn how to sail the thing downwind because it was more unstable, but it was just like I'd got out of it the day before, really. And I think, one of the things that always has attracted me with moths and small boats, very small boats, is that if your body weight is bigger than the total mass of the boat, your body movement makes so much difference to how you sail a boat. Whenever I get on a keel boat, which is very, very rarely, it's just like, why would you do this? You're trying to push forward and ooch the boat, and nothing happens. You're just going, nah, don't want to do that. So that whole thing of you've got a main sheet, you've got a tiller, and you've got your body, and that's just sort of three key things. And
correct. And
that body movement, it's sort of becomes a muscle memory almost of how to do it.
It's amazing.
So 2001, Amac, you jump back in, pull off a third, mind you, at the Worlds.
just because.
And then we pretty much see over the subsequent years, or the next 5 or 6 years, the moth revolutionised.
Yeah. And obviously the first guy got it wrong.
Obviously. It's hard for me to think of it as revolutionised because it's just chipping away, really. I mean, there's little things that we do that are probably big jumps, but they often come from a lot of little small jumps.
Right.
But I can't think of anything in that period that was revolutionary, really. It was just-
Well, I think Bice is referring to the fact that you got a faster craft that got up on foils, and then from that you created the Blade Rider.
So let's be clear here that
Right.
John Eilert from Fastercraft basically created this whole thing, not me.
Yep.
This whole group in Perth were the guys that really
Absolutely.
had the vision to push forward and make it work.
I'll just step in
I
there
think,
because there were other developments going around the world. It wasn't just in Western Australia, but definitely John Eilert was leading the way in that. I remember clearly this whole evolution. So it's that West Australian sort of we'll take care of things over there. But yeah, so we're not discounting John at all. But yeah, sorry, I just wanted to because there was all sorts of different foil combinations coming out, but the Fastercraft work, I remember it all. Anyway, go on.
Well, I mean, one of the things that made the Fastercraft made everyone persist with that, the bifoiler, was that the Moth outlawed the trifoiler, which was the correct thing to do because it made it a catamaran or trimaran. Mm-hmm. So, I think without the rules being in place to say, well, you can't do anything but something that comes out underneath the hull, I think we might not have got there because it was a pretty big leap to get to the point where the bifoiler was something that made sense. So I think for me, the biggest leap about the bifoiler was learning the technique to sail it. And I think you've got to give a lot of credit to Rowan on that too. So I was coaching him at the time when he got his first set of foils. And I think this sort of describes my probably lack of vision on the whole foiling thing in those early days. Was he bought a set of foils from John, and I was going, mate, we've got a plan. You're going to win the 2006 World Championships. That's the plan. Don't get distracted. And he said, oh yeah, but I bought them. I really want to put them on. So he bought his boat out of my house. We fitted these foils, and he disappeared for 6 weeks. And it was middle of winter, so I didn't really think much of it because it was Melbourne, you know what it's like. So he came back after 6 weeks and he says, I've been sailing most days, I'm never going back. Really? And that was the leap in a way, in that John's brother Garth had been bringing these foils to Australian Championships over the past 5 years and pretty much give up each championship. I think one with the water was too shallow, another he just was slow down wind, couldn't keep it upright, and he'd always end up going back to the standard foil. So it really took that leap of, hey, we can do this. People can actually make this thing work and go fast. So, yeah, big leap.
I remember actually being in Melbourne during the Volvo stopover, early 2006, and Rowan came down with the boat, and he was just up and foiling around in the Docklands there.
Yep.
And it just stopped everyone. Everyone's working on the boat and just stopped, turn around, watching this thing. Like, is this real? Are we seeing this?
Probably not realising what they're actually seeing at the time. Yeah, sure.
No, exactly.
For sure. Yeah.
And
even back then, I didn't really read the forums back then, and I still don't. But when I was doing, I think, the Mac 2, I decided to just go back and look at what little information I might be able to glean from the boating forums. And even in 2008, it was just naysaying. It was just like, this foiling fad, it's never going to work, doesn't make sense, they're not fast. And you're going, guys, look out your window. These things are fast, no doubt about it.
I still remember I can't remember if it was a Nationals or World's report where, it really, the first time it really took off and Rowan was a leg or two legs in front, with lapping the field basically. I remember that discussion. It was a game changer. That was the moment. So yeah, I guess that point of Rowan, and he is sailing around. We still hear from him occasionally, but he sort of had this bright flashing moment, and just dominated. But why did the Blade Rider? What was the difference with the Blade Rider?
Anger.
You're the best
Mate,
interview ever,
you knew
mate.
the answer was coming, right?
So, what do I mean by that? I was angry with John Eilert.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was really angry with John Eilert, actually, because we had. I was working in a software company at this point, and running KA windsurfing at the same time. So, which is sort of was where KA went downhill a bit, because it was really just a side business at the time. So yeah, I was running a team of developers in a place called Create Form, and the guy who owned it sold it, and we decided together to start a new business, building foiling moths.
Mm.
And first thing we did was approach John and go, "Do you want to be in this? Do you want, can we use design? Do you want to be part of it?" And he was like, "Yeah, look, that'd be great. And then I could just, do the development and not have to worry about manufacturing and all that stuff." And it was quite a long way down the track when we stopped hearing from him. Eventually, I rang him from another phone, so he didn't know it was me. And he answered, and I said, "So, John, what's going on?" And he said, "Oh, I don't think I need you guys. I think I'll do it by myself."
That old chestnut.
And I went, "Okay, John." Hung up.
Wow.
And then he thought that was the end of that. Well, he took on someone he shouldn't have. So I learnt 3D CAD. I brought out all the old software we had for doing foil analysis, and I just said, "Our boat is going to be so much quicker than yours that will blow you out of the water."
Wow.
And that was
A man driven by anger.
Yeah, and it was the same for the Mac 2. It was anger. It was just like, I am going to drive you to the ground.
Really? Tell us more.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Who was angry? Who made you angry for the Mac 2?
Blade Rider, because my partner from the software company.
Oh.
And can you imagine being a software developer, selling software? You sell the software and you still got it. So it's a very different business model to developing a boat, doing all of that stuff and doing it with, doing everything with as little money and as little resources as you can, because you know that the market's not that big and you have to do that. He was just spending money like it was going out of fashion. He'd put $500,000 in and spent it all within the first year. And it was like, we need to put more money in. So I got diluted from my 50%. So, and after, I think, another 6 months, we parted ways. So not by my choice either. So I was angry with him. So anyway, McConaughey was building the Blade Rider, and he pissed them off as well by moving, still doing all the development at McConaughey, but deciding to do the manufacturing someone else and not telling McConaughey, and they found out and threw them out. They just put all the molds outside and said, "Sorry, we're not doing it anymore.
Wow.
Come pick them up." And so McConaughey rang me and said, "Do you want to design a moth with us?" And I went, "Sounds good."
Lucky the sailing world's not small and you can get away with this stuff. Ticking people around.
Until Barkarati came along.
Yeah. No, so that whole Mac 2 thing was just revolutionary. I mean, and for you, I think just personally, that must have been revolutionary, because the take-up of the Mac 2 has been unbelievable.
Yeah, I think, there's so many factors that made that work, and everything I learned from the Blade Rider of how to not build a boat, everything we learned from, we developed a lot of software to create the foils, to analyse the foils, to do the boat, the whole design even back when I did the Mac 2, we still thought we might be sailing off the foils, which is, well, we still do, but it's not really that important anymore. So the whole shape is more aerodynamic than hydrodynamic. So, and the structures and, the layouts and everything, we just done so much work. And actually beating the Blade Rider foils was a big thing, because they were pretty good. And it took me a long time to go, yes, we've got a foil that's better than them all round. So it was the whole thing was compressed into under 6 months from starting to launching the boat. And I was the most stressed I've ever been in my life, I have to tell you.
Wow. But, I mean, as we said, it was a major changer in the whole world. I guess there's a question I want to ask. I'm not sure if this is the right time for it, but if you were a young lad or a young lass, or you're thinking, right, I want to go sailing in a Moth, what's the right way to jump into the Moth class if you've never been in there now? Is it just buy a Mark II and go for it, or is it what do you think the pathway is?
Really good question. I think the most important thing to ask yourself when you're going to sail a Moth is, how committed am I?
Or should I be committed?
Because it is a huge commitment, I think, and it's hard. So, and the rewards are massive, but everyone's spending a lot of money. Everyone's doing a lot of boat work. Do you want to really do this?
I was going to say there's a lot of tinkering that goes on. You go down to Wallara quite often, and you can just see them fiddling around and tinkering with their boats. It's non-stop, and so that is a big point that you just mentioned there. Putting in the time, I guess, is a big one.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who have rather inflated ideas of how good they are, and how they can just jump into this and make it work. Well, it just doesn't work that way. There's so much time in the water to get to that skill level. There's so much. You look at the guys who win in Moss. They're not young. Rarely they're young anyway. They're usually the guys who put the yards in. Scotty Babbage just won the Nationals by a huge amount. He's not young anymore, but it's just because he's put those yards in over the years and has learnt. The body. The body memory, the muscle memory, we call it, and all those things are skills, the knowing what works, knowing, just going sailing on the boat, just knowing that that's working or not working, and going back and changing it. It's a process. So my first thing is this what you really want to do? Because I'm talking about going racing and being competitive.
That's what we're
as far as just going sailing and having a blast. Buy a Mac 2, buy a Wasp, just do it. It's fun. It's absolutely just awesome. So the path to a Moth, first thing I do would get a Wasp. There's no doubt about it. But,
I knew that was coming. That was the entry point that I was thinking.
But you don't need to have it for very long. You could probably have it for a year if you go for it, or even 6 months if you really go for it, and then think about what you want to do. But the great thing about the Wasp is that buy it and you sell it for pretty much the same price these days. So it's not a huge investment. But I really think that the best path for a Moth is the Mac 2. That's my passion to make it like that.
Because it keeps evolving. You keep making improvements, obviously.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a bit of time out in the woods when we were doing the Wasp, and the focus wasn't on the Mac 2. So we got overtaken in performance for a while. And also the unfinishedness of it. There was a lot of things we did in 2016 and 17, 18 that were not really finished. And the sail, we introduced the deck sweeper sail, but we never really capitalised on it because we never really finished it. we did a lot of things, I think, that in that period where we changed the way people look at the moth, but we didn't capitalise on it with the Mach 2. And so the last 2 years have been about, let's take what we've got, let's make everything just work, let's make it fit together, let's really concentrate on the mechanics of it rather than extracting more performance, because the performance is fantastic. It's just that you buy it, and unless you know how to tweak it, then it's not gonna sing for you. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. Make it sing straight out of the box.
But before we talk about the wasp, which I think is an extremely important part of this discussion, I'm actually just looking at a photo on my screen here, Andrew, and I think the wand is possibly wider than the hull of the Mach 2. Well refined. But the question, how many Mach 2s have you managed to get out of the door?
Mach 2 in total, I think, is 670.
Wow.
It's big, isn't it?
Well,
yeah.
Big. Now that moves us to the wasp. And before we talk about that little journey, well, part of that little journey, am I correct in saying 120 wasps have been moved out the door since January this year?
Yeah, more than that.
Oh. So what I was alluding to earlier in regards to being the most listened episode, by all means we have the actual thing, but if every moth sailor listens to this episode, it'll be through the roof. How many wasps do we have out there now then?
I think it's 1,150.
Wow, that's amazing.
Wasps. In 44 countries, I'm led to believe.
44 countries, wow. So, I mean, how did you get to the wasp?
The wasp was gestating before the Mach 2, actually.
Right.
And it was sort of a reaction to Blade Riders after I left.
You got angry?
No. It was their attempt to go, let's make a one design moth, and they're just all they did was make a cheaper version of the current Blade Rider, which was crap. So, but I don't know. I'm breaking up a bit. Are you guys hearing me well?
We're getting you clear as, mate. So
okay,
we appreciate all your time.
But it was just like so many of even my friends would get into a moth and they just drop out because they didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to do the type of boat work that was required, and they didn't have the money, and they'd just be spat out the back. And I'm just going, well, got to be a better way to have this work. And so it was sort of like, write a list of things that were immutable for a class, for this boat. What did it have to be? And there was things like, had to have no stays because, I've got stay cuts in my arms all the way up. Haven't lost my calf muscle as some people have, but it had to have aluminium foil so that they were reproducible. It had to have plastic tips so they were replaceable on the foils. Had to be at least half the price of the moth. Had to be quarter the price of total cost of ownership of the moth. Had to have the wishbone, well, not so much wishbone, had to be safe. So the wishbone was part of that, and the shape of the foils was part of that. They sing because they've got a slightly rounded back on them, so they don't cut you. So there was I can't remember all the other things, but I just wrote this list of what it had to meet to and it had to be indestructible. And I had to foil in X amount of knots and had to do this speed. And so
and one design. I mean, that's obviously one.
Oh, yeah.
Is it?
One design.
It's a crazy word in our world at the moment, but one design.
One design, yeah. Had to be one design. And so the WASP project was 20 times harder than the Mac 2.
Well, based on those parameters, you didn't just, unless you had the super software, just chuck it in and it threw out the WASP.
Yeah, I used to always say, when we were doing windsurfer sales, I created this program, you just type in the year and everything's done.
The WASP was... Go on. No, I was just going to say that the sales are obviously the major award and the fact that people are responding to it, but, one dinghy of the year 2016, best one design 2017. So it's, it was well received by industry, not just the consumer.
Yeah. And I have to give it to the guys here who work with me, Mark and Liam and all the crew have just really chipped away at making sure that we just keep on making it work in every area, in the community, in the construction, in just chipping away at the little niggly things that make it hard to sail or hard to rig or rah. So, we've had a couple of not recalls, but we've reissued the front foil. We've had a mail out where we replaced a whole lot of bits and pieces that were just failing, and so everyone who had a WASP got it if they contacted us, and there's still a couple out there that haven't. So, but it's been a commitment to the whole thing of not just the boat and the design. And it's taken a while. I think we had a huge take up to start with because everyone liked the idea, but I don't think we executed it very well to start with for the first couple of years. Yep. And then now I think we're executing it really well.
Mm. I can sense a Barcarati challenge coming on, boys. None of us have foiled. So.
Well,
I have.
Oh, sorry.
I must admit, I have.
Yeah. I was going to actually go down that pathway question or theme we brought up earlier and ask you both if there was a pathway there for us. And ask you if you had foiled. So Bicey's foiled. Jay, you've never foiled?
No.
Well, depends as part of the super formula for the WASP. What's the max weight?
20 kilograms. No. There isn't really a max weight, but I tell you what, it makes it a lot harder if you're over, say, 90 kilos. It's definitely a more difficult boat to sail if you're bigger than 90. Are you bigger than 90?
I am. Well over. I've got an abnormal sized head, just in case you don't know, Amac.
Well, actually, Jordan is 90 kilograms, but when you add the head on, he gets up there.
Oh, dear. Hey,
the relation. Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
Go on, boss.
The relationship. We've seen a lot of information out there on the socials and everywhere else in the relationship between SailGP and WASP, basically creating the pathway there. Is that what's the status of that at the moment?
Really strong. It's again, hats off to Mark, just pushing to make sure that we have a relationship that is beneficial for both of us, and and also that SailGP doesn't go down a path of silliness, which they could have done, by saying, "Oh yeah, let's make them offer this pathway thing," which would have really been difficult unless they stuck to a one design boat.
Yeah, sure.
So really, really strong. We've got a new thing coming on with them, which I can't really talk about, but it's going to be even stronger than what it is now.
Fantastic.
It's what's under the title of the Inspire, right? Inspire.
Yeah, the Inspire program. So basically, it's taking generally kids who there's one side of it where there's kids who qualify to sail at the SailGP event between races. So it's quite a logistic thing. It's quite fun to watch them. The cats finish, and then suddenly there are all these boats trucked out into the course, and they do a little race and then they sail. quick, got to get back again before you get run over by a 50-knot cat.
It's like the kids kicking the footy at half time.
So it's pretty exciting for those kids who are in it because they're right there. It's not like you're miles away from these cats. They're right in the middle of it. Wow. So it's pretty cool. But there's the other side of it is just getting kids who would not have the possibility of sailing such a thing and getting them on boats. And that's outside the actual Sail GP event. So they just, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, it's another program that is done generally before the event.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're not receiving any money for this. This is not an ad. We're not doing this. So just AMAC hasn't paid us anything. We're just happily chatting about things that interest us. So
Mark Habler, feel free to send money at any point in time.
We're sort of way past our time that we normally allocate, but we're having such a good time here, mate. I hate to tell you. So there has to be a few hard questions to ask you.
Cool. Let me go get some water while we're doing that. Jeez.
Yeah, just do whatever you want.
That's right.
we run loose. What boat or boats should be in the Olympics?
Oh, gosh. Not ours.
Okay, there we go. I was interested. Why not yours?
Because I think it destroys a boat.
I agree.
I think there's several that agree with you on that one, including our 1BP.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I be brutally honest?
Absolutely.
That's what we're here for.
I just think that we've had a lot of push over the years. It should be the Olympics, should be an international class, should be aligned with world sailing and blah blah blah. It's just hard,
yep.
And it's so much politics and so much.
Oh, thank God I'm listening. To someone. So good to hear, AMAC. Keep going.
And just so many restrictions on what you can and can't do, and it's like, no, we need to move fast. We need to be finger on the pulse. We need to be tapping the energy of this thing, not being going, oh, yeah, well, you can change the rules in 6 months because it'll have to be approved by the committee. Oh, hang on, they're not meeting until 9 months, so you can't change that rule. Fuck that. I mean, oops, sorry.
Don't worry about that.
We're all good. We're all good.
All right.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, we love that. We love that.
Yeah, F that.
What about the pros coming into the Moth class? Like it or not?
Well, I'm glad it's happening now when I'm sort of no longer in a position to win anything.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, it's really always been the case. I mean, you look back to, not when I say not always, but in this decade anyway, or the last decade, most of the winners were pretty much pros. So you had Goodison, Burling, Outridge, they're all effectively pros, and they pretty much dominate the last decade. So
correct.
It's not new.
It's definitely lifted the profile. I mean,
how many of them have given you a call, AMAC, what can we do to make my boat the fastest?
All of them.
Yeah, I was going to say you've accepted all their bribery, all their money.
No, actually, Slingsby was very disappointed in my ability to make him fast, because I just said, "Here's your boat, fuck off." So hence he sailed someone else's boat.
Okay.
No, we I think the only time I've really done a special boat for one of those guys was 2017 for Burling, and we were just doing what was the precursor to the 2.4, I think, back then. And we had a boat there for him, and he turned up the day before and broke the boat in the first day and still came second. So, yeah. But other than that, no, just we don't do that
Let
stuff.
them do that.
We don't have the capacity to do that.
Well, so what's more important to you, developing the best boats or winning on the water?
Neither.
What's more important? What's the important thing for you?
Make everyone happy.
Oh, isn't that nice? I love that.
No, I mean, it's true.
No,
I mean, it's not, it's like winning is just, it helps us sell boats and it helps us get our profile up. Building the fastest boat is not necessarily something that actually creates the win. It's just making a boat that's usable and fast and
Fun.
and solid and not too expensive and good resale, all those things.
Is it a bit of a, what do they call it, an oxymoron? Making people happy being driven by anger?
Nah.
No.
I think
Well,
on top of that though, Bicey, on top of that is a community. I mean, you hear all the guys talking about how much fun it is to go sailing these boats, but it's definitely not just on the water. I mean, on the water the gun goes, and it's got that element of anger, but off the water they're all good mates, and that's what you've done there.
Let's find out, BP. Who do you have to beat, Amac? At a moth regatta, who do you have to beat?
Who do I have to be?
Yeah, it has to be behind you. You'll come last as long as he comes. If you come second last, and as long as he comes last, you're happy. Or she.
Well, for a start, anyone who works for me.
Right. Yep.
Obvious. That'd get a bit cruel if I started mentioning names.
Oh no, it's we mean friendly rivalry, not someone you hate. We mean the friendly rivalry.
Well, Luke Adamek would have to be one I really love to beat. Matt Chu is another one, but he got me in the last Nationals by Squizia, the B's something.
Yeah.
But that's not really friendly rivalry because he hates me beating him, whereas Luke is sort of pretty cool about it. But, yeah, I'd love to beat Babbage, but that's sort of not happening at the moment.
At the moment.
Love it.
Well, you've certainly brought a lot of smiles to a lot of sailors' faces, Andrew, in the whole journey. And I think BP, you knocked it on the head nicely there. Like when the boats come in, they're all in the boat park together. They're all got high banter, which we enjoy, of course. And so I think, a tip of the hat, absolutely, for being part of what we, like it or not, but a revolution in sailing, 100%.
Yeah, no, totally agreed, Bossy. Absolutely.
Thank you. I just have to add that that I think I touched on it before. The revolution thing is really because that we've just stayed the path. It's like this is what we do. This is what we do, and we're not going to get distracted by whatever fashion or whatever comes along. This is what we do, and we're not going to compromise on that.
Yep, good mantra.
Love it. Mate, I think we're going to have to call it there because we've gone way past our time, but we've loved every second of chatting to you, to be honest. I will suggest that you'll probably see the three of us at some stage. We'll probably pick on Mark. We'll give Mark a call one day and we'll set up the Barkarati Challenge. Maybe we can work in conjunction with that and have a all-comers challenge.
Well, let's face it, Andrew did say something earlier.
What's that?
About, I can't mention it right now.
Oh, yes.
It could be the Barkarati Challenge.
Could be that. But, yeah, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure to have the time with you here chatting and more power to you, bud.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Amac.
Good on you, mate.
Having you on.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Well done.
Hey, got to love the approach, love the honesty, and love the outcome. But let's not face it; it's not the end. It almost feels as though what we've seen Amac achieve up until now has put them in position to really launch.
Well, no one's doing it. No one's doing it right. They're all wrong.
My last question I had, and I didn't ask it, is what's next? Because I think the reason I didn't ask that question is I reckon when we want to ask that question, I think we should be sitting down with him live, having a beer.
Yeah.
I reckon that would be one of the best conversations. So I left that question so we could do that. So I think
copy. But I mean, especially just going back to the WASP thing, what those guys are doing is fantastic for the sport. And if we've asked the question, what are the pathways? What are this? What are that? Yes, it's at the bigger end of town, but look at the boats out on the water. Yep. Look how much fun people, not just kids, but people are having in these boats.
Well, I was just about to bring it up with him. I was sailing with a lad on the weekend, and he's got a WASP, and he calls it a very much a social class. And I'm going, well, it's social, but I'm sure it's competitive out there. But as we discussed earlier, they've got this community sense with the moths in general, but the wasps, I think, the wasps in particular have got a massive community growing.
Yep.
Fantastic. Beautiful. All right,
Rumour has it they actually have a secret handshake between wasp owners. Mark Ablett developed it.
Oh, God.
We won't go into it.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Oh, dear.
Righto.
All right. Secret pro news?
Negative. No secret pro this week.
I've got none.
Plenty of correspondence in, but no secret pro.
Yeah. No secret pro news this week. It's unusual, and which is just fine for the listeners because we never can
Apart from
tell
what's about to come up, I think.
Okay. This is not secret. We're going live. Listener of the week.
Yeah, a couple of plenty. Loving the stuff coming in. Loving the banter coming in. That's probably grabs us the most. Quick shout out to Denise Del Mundo, who reached out to us just in recognition of 15-year anniversary of losing Hans, which was yesterday. And
I read that.
Shout out to Junior Andrew Lewis, who from ABN AMRO. Buggered if I know where he pulls all his bloody photos from, but he has some classics out there.
What happened? I saw a photo of you with a broken hand. What's going on there?
No, that was Southern Ocean. Broke my hand. The leg from Wellington to where was it? Wellington to Rio.
I don't even remember.
About a week into it.
Right.
That's right. Just wrapped her up in an old power bar.
Just manned up, didn't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Listener of the week. Been an avid listener for quite some time. Sean Wagner, South Carolina.
Oh yeah.
He sent through some suggestions. And just a bit of history, he sent through an idea that if we want to sell our beer in the US, he'd be more than happy, and he has the right area to be able to brew for us. So high on the agenda, Sean.
Yep, we haven't forgotten you.
We haven't forgotten you. But this one through this week. All right, guys, you've had a listener of the week, controversy of the week, but I've got one for you. Solution of the week. Bar Karate has an actuals mold 11 and it's illegal. Yes, it's bullshit, and I hope they get a resolution soon. But instead of doing a mold 11 regatta, I say you need to think this through. The M11 is illegal, not allowed in class racing. Therefore, since it's illegal, it's a pirate. BK, Bar Karate has access to a pirate ship. Since it's not legal to transport sailors' lager across international borders without licenses, fees, etc., doing so would be piracy. Well, I say you use Mold 11 fleet to run sailors' lager out to sailors and listeners everywhere. Lower the club burgee and raise the black. Raise the colours, lads. Use those pirate boats to run lager. Problem solved. Well, good banter, love it. One, you put yourself out of a job in the US.
Well, the crazy part is
and then finally, let me know if you need any other problem solved. The only bit he missed off of it, you're welcome.
Nice one. Yeah.
Oh, well done. So merchandise pack on the way to him?
Merchandise pack may or may not be in the post.
Love it. Dear. I love it. Love it. Good work.
Well, I think he's the type of bloke that deserves a stubby cooler too.
Yeah.
All right. Gentlemen.
All right, lay it on us.
Here we go.
Do it.
Gentlemen, so when all this...
Hang on, let me record BP's face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When all this controversy came out about the Mold 11, one of the things we said, be careful what you ask for because there's going to be pushback. Last week we mentioned there was pushback on one boat that the Mold 11 guys alleged breaches the ETRL rules, and that's going to go on right across the class. So there is big pushback. And the other one we thought that there'd be pushback against is World Sailing and their responsibilities on this, and that has happened this week. Right. BP's just looking at me. Right.
I'm actually taking notes.
Yep. I will tell you what turned up this week. We officially have a deep throat, right? We the Woodward and Bernstein with is ETRL Gate now. We've gone, it is 100% ETRL Gate. But what has turned up is not allegations or statements. What has turned up is a huge pile of evidence. So this person has not just gone out and made statements. This person has compiled evidence, and it must have taken hundreds and hundreds of hours. This is insane what has turned up on our desk. And to all the other media outlets, none of you have got this. So please credit us when you quote this, because I know that this is the only media. I don't even know if we're media.
We're not media, mate.
Whatever we are.
We're just idiots that sit around talking to these
But
stupid microphones.
I must admit, I kind of feel a bit uncomfortable even getting all this inside information.
It's
but
insane.
Go ahead.
Now, for those who are on the opposite side of the case, we have stated over and over again, please come on the show. We'll give you your airtime and you can put forward your case. So this case is coming in support of Mold 11. And the first thing that we have to talk about is the fact that measurement certificates have been issued by World Sailing. Effectively, World Sailing issues the certificates. They're authorised by either World Sailing or their member nation authorities. Okay. So the whole process of that is there is certain elements that are undertaken in that. So the validity of a certificate is confirmed by World Sailing through its member nation authority, which is Australian Sailing, basically. Now, it is required, it states in the rules that the equipment is required to comply with the International ETRL Building Specification and is subject to a World Sailing Approval Manufacturing Control System. Right? Have you guys heard of that before?
No. I wouldn't be able to recite it, but go on.
So if you go through all the elements of the ETRL rules, and then you actually go through World Sailing, and they have a policy around how their control system works. And their policy is that a qualified auditor appointed by the authorising authority is World Sailing, will conduct audits. Now, there's two types of audits, internal and external audits. So both the manufacturer and the authorising authority can conduct those audits. The internal audits are to be conducted every 3 months. The external audits are to be conducted every 12 months. This is the policies of World Sailing. Okay. Now, can anyone ever, in your experience of any class, have seen an audit of a manufacturer's or a manufacturer auditing their equipment? Ever?
Negative.
So this is a requirement, and this is what's stated in the rules and in the measurement certificate. And World Sailing take payment for the issuing of the measurement certificates for this. So therefore, purchasers of the Mold 11 boats in their agreement have a statement from World Sailing that these boats are certified as ETRLs, so when they bought the boats, and there's in their policies that they have audited the manufacturing process, and that these by issuing this measurement certificate, all these things are done, and they've taken the money to state that. I would argue that through this certification process, because of this, World Sailing cannot not approve Mould 11 boats because they've actually said that this is the process. You're buying with assurance that this stuff has been done.
And taken monies for it.
What you're saying is that they've ordered the boat 11, 12 times. I supposed to have.
Boat 11,
Mould 11
external audits every year. So what is it, 2010 mould? So
11 years.
Yep.
11 times Mould 11 boats have been audited.
But no, I mean, I don't think any boat's been audited.
No.
Okay, so that's the first point. Now, so from a world sailing perspective, it's a no-brainer. Like I would argue from a world sailing, if I'm running world sailing, I would just go, whoops, we have stuffed up royally here. If we outlaw these boats, and I will say this quite clearly, world sailing have not taken away the measurement certificates of Mould 11 boats, despite what everyone believes, right? World sailing legally on the hook. I mean, it's basic. I mean, any court in the world, you're on the hook with that. And of course, for those who don't know, the legal counsel for world sailing it left the role 2 weeks ago. So I don't know who's in that seat, but that would be very nerve-wracking if I was world sailing. So my immediate response would be just to reinstate the validity of Mould 11 because they've got no other comeback. And a court will make them do that regardless. You understand that? Right? That's point one.
Yep. Point one.
Right. Point two. Point two.
Clear your throat, Jordan.
Yeah. The allegations that there's no authorised Mould 11, but the Mould 11 mould was never authorised. Have you ever investigated the process?
I have.
You have?
Well, I've done a little bit of looking into what was required to officially start the process. And the process had to be accepted, number one. And that's the first point that I don't understand.
Okay.
Okay, so that's where we'll leave it for that.
So there's allegations from our deep throat, and our deep throat may be more than one person. I'll just tell you. Okay, there is allegations, and it is not Mark, who we had on the show for our 99th episode. I can say categorically it is not Mark. It's not the same person agitating, all right? So the process, there is allegations that when the request that was sent to World Sailing was, could you please, this is the request, this was sent by the International Governors Committee to World Sailing. Could you please find any paper correspondence to do with Mould 11? Paper correspondence. That was what the request was. And then there's a video of them going through the files, right? So this is paperwork, and there's nothing in those files after 2005. Okay, so paper correspondence. Now, what happened between that period, probably for the last 20 years, basically, we've been using emails.
I was going to say what happened between that period. Oh, okay, computer.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So whilst there may be no piece in the paper, but it's all on computer. So likely, the allegation is that it's likely on computer. So this person reached out to the Governors Committee asking for the minutes. There are allegations that the minutes that came back had parts missing. Okay, and they were all relevant to this discussion about Mould 11. This is an allegation. Okay? Now, this person or this group of people didn't sit there. They received that information from the secretary of the council. They then went to other committee members and got their records. And all those records that they received from the other committee members had the missing information. Right?
Ooh, Etchelsgate.
Right?
2021.
Yep. So that's the interesting thing. That In all this information, there is a whole bunch of correspondence where they've talked about the process of building the mould, how they measured mould, how it came out, the plug, everything, how it was approved, how the commission occurred, that there was authorisation to use the scans, then the chair of the One Design Committee, that there's a whole bunch of here, but I'm just trying to find the approval statement. World Sailing, key control, international measure. Anyway, I'll get there. Once the prototype was built from the mould 11, your international measure inspected and measured it, finding it measured satisfactorily, and assured himself the tooling was satisfactory, and allocated a mould number. Okay, so basically...
And there's photographic evidence of all of that.
So much photographic evidence. But not only did they measure the plug, they measured the boats coming out, so it's been measured multiple times. There's also, from the international measurer, the World Sailing International Measurer, etchels made from mould 11 are in every way an etchels in accordance with the etchel class rules, tolerance and specifications. Okay? There is minutes from World Sailing's Governing Council, and that mould 11 is high quality and compliance is acknowledged. Okay? Right? So there's a ton of evidence that there was a process that went through and that the mould 11 is correct. So it measures, and the pushback is that there was no authorisation from World Sailing. Okay.
And that's the glitch. That's what the whole thing's been about, right?
Correct.
The non-authorisation.
Correct.
Putting the boats, putting anything else aside, that is the kicker. All right. Point 3. By the way, don't drop your microphone because we can't afford to buy a new one.
Yeah. Lucky it's on a stand.
Are you ready for this, BP?
Well,
are you ready for this world? Right? The world. So I can't tell you how thorough this document is, this pile of documents is that we've got here. Okay? And the question was, this authorisation process for mould 11. So the person or the group of people that did this research went, well, where's the approval process for moulds 8, 9 and 10? I have made inquiries several times for the respective documentation and now of the view that it does not exist. Nobody can provide the approval documentation for process for moulds 8, 9 or 10. The conclusion is that the moulds just came about organically within a loose management of the association and absence of any oversight by IYRU or World Sailing. So, in reality, you could conclude, given the evidence that has been produced, and unfortunately I can't share it, but it will come out, maybe mould 11 is the actually only legal etchel mould in the world.
I think we said right at the start of all this that we're not going to know what an etchel is.
Yeah, no, we did.
We also said that there's going to be a bunch of worms that are going to escape. We said this at the start. It's happened. It's happening. There are obviously a massive amount of people who are not going to let this go from either side. It doesn't, and let's not talk about sides. Let's just talk about this from a class side of things. There is a massive amount of issues that I don't think can be solved. I don't think can be resolved.
Well, I think if all this comes out and there is an actual audit on the whole process, we're not just talking about etchels here. We're talking about every other One Design boat that has different manufacturers worldwide.
Correct. Yep. We went through this 2 years ago with the lasers. You know, not necessarily to this level, but there was this element going on. It's commercial. Number one, it is commercial. There are an element of people in corners that are commercially receiving whatever they might be receiving that are driving it, and that is the basis of this whole thing.
That's what you're alleging, BP?
Allegedly.
Yep, that's what you're alleging. Okay, so we've had discussions around that aspect, but we don't have evidence. We know, but anyway, Bicey's point is correct. On the first point, World Sailing now, this is going to blow everything up. So World Sailing now and the approval process and the measurement certificates and the whole point of the process is going to change. And the first response I've been told, okay, so this is just something I've been told and I don't know if it's true, is that the first response from World Sailing is, you can't rely on measurement certificates. Right.
But we'll take your money.
They're not important. It's up to the class to make sure the boats are correct. All right? But the process is that it looks to this dossier, it looks to very much that, World Sailing are in a corner and have to work out some way to come out of that corner, and there's only one possible way out of that corner that doesn't end up in court.
Either way, it's going to court, right?
Yeah.
It's got to.
Two, it looks very much like all the documentation, all the process was undertaken and everyone has been very happy and it's all documented. We've got 60 pages of documentation of that process. That looks like the Mould 11 process is completely above board and has been approved. I wouldn't want to be a measurer in the world at the moment. And three, the thing that they were going to try and tear the Mould 11 boats down with looks like it might come back and haunt
all the other
moulds. Yeah. It's crazy. There's the level of childishness that is created
That's the word.
This situation.
That is the you've hit it right on the head there, mate.
I think everyone needs to grow up, stop throwing the word cheats around and just work out the boat's measure and go sailing. It's only a yacht race.
Here.
Yeah.
Drop the arms and go sailing, I believe is the term.
You wanted me to fall off the chair. Well, I didn't fall off the chair.
You're interested?
But,
wow.
But
Not far off. I've got to leg up the arse in the meantime.
But let me tell you, you just nailed it on the head there at the end. And I think 90% of the people in this sailing world want this just to go away and everyone go sailing.
Yeah, I think Amac sort of alluded to it when I asked him, what boat should be in the Olympics, and he just said, I don't want to borrow that stuff. So the administration side of it needs to. That's why the pursuit race is untouchable, because you just go around in circles, bring whatever you want, go around in circles.
That's it.
And drink beer afterwards.
All right.
Okay. Well, is that a world changer for you, BP?
Yeah, look, I'm going to be honest with you. It is absolutely what we want, and it is. It's not that. There's nothing for me. There's nothing actually 100% new there, because it's all being talked about. But in saying that, if that has come to the light of day in the proper channels, which obviously we're going to see either happen or not happen, then it is a game changer. It's if it's taken on board at that level. We can only talk about stuff because that's what we do. We're three mates getting together having a chat, and that's what we've done.
Yeah, with zero assets in our company.
Negative zero.
I've got 6 cartons of Sailors Lager left.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're in Victoria, shout out. We've got a couple over there willing to part with.
Yep, we've got a few cartons left.
Handful in New South Wales. But
okay. Cool. Right, while we're continuing on the Olympic theme, just after we recorded last week, literally straight after we recorded, the announcement came out from the Council of World Sailing about the vote for the next Olympics, the 24 Olympics. The Council of World Sailing voted not to pursue or move ahead with the double-handed offshore event. and instead they pushed to try and get the 470 male and female, but the member nations didn't vote according to what the committee nominated, and have instead voted that the kiteboard event be split, and it is a male-female kiteboard event, and so that will be what goes in to the IOC as their recommendation for what will be
as the alternate, right?
As the alternate.
So we've still got the double offshore.
Still in there.
Is still in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's being lobbied.
As the alternate is the falling kiteboard.
Yeah, but this is what World Sailing pushed forward as their recommendation. You know that I don't know what the political machinations are that are going on behind the scenes, but
according to your last segment, there's quite a lot.
Yeah, we know. Well, I guess we do know what the machinations are, but we're not allowed to say, really, I guess, without getting anyone upset. Whatever happened to our motto of only positive?
Yeah, no, it's going well.
Yeah, no, I think we actually are trying to be positive. I will argue we are trying to be positive because we're trying to move everything past this stupidity and just get back to having fun. So anyway, if the kiteboarders out there are listening, all three of you, congratulations. No, that's cheeky. There's some very talented kiteboard sailors out there, but I think our view is obvious. We want the double-handed offshore event. We think it'd be fantastic.
Very clear.
The sport needs to move forward and come up with cool stuff. And yeah, right. So then the question then becomes, gentlemen, our last question of the day: will the Olympics go ahead?
Oh well,
I'm saying no.
But hang on. We got our Australian gear the other day. It has to go ahead.
Oh, the new Bonds underwear. Yeah, awesome.
The Tokyo Medical Practitioners Association have officially called for the Olympic Games to be cancelled. The Tokyo Medical Practitioners Association. I believe, from the news I've heard, is that IOC have said to Japan they're going to sequester hospital beds in case of need for the athletes or the support staff. The Japanese are not very happy with that approach. IOC has said they're going to bring in medical support to help. We think that all athletes everyone going to the games will be vaccinated. The actual truth is they reckon up to 80% of the people turning up for the games are going to be vaccinated. 80% is what the numbers are. In Japan, vaccination in the medical field, 30% of medical staff are vaccinated and less than 4% of the general population are vaccinated.
So I haven't had many dealings with the Japanese. Do you think it's just a staunch no, it's going ahead on their behalf? Because one, the investment that they've made, the losing face of delaying it from last year. And if that's the approach, no, it's certainly going ahead. I'll be interested to see what nations actually decide to not to go. If that's going to come into it.
It is interesting because I think something like, I can't remember the survey number, but it was something like 88% of the Japanese general public don't want the Olympics to go ahead.
Yeah, wow.
It's massive, isn't it?
Wow.
But you've got to have a look at it from the other side. The amount of money that's gone into it, or the amount of money that goes into an Olympics, it's massive. And just to have no return.
Time and investments. I mean, we've got the Australian team right here, launching out in my backyard right now to go and train, So it's so much investment.
They're all staying at your house?
Not quite. One is. So it's crazy. It's crazy. I just don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think it's a give me. It's just what I just want to bring it up as a discussion point. I don't think it's a give me. The Olympics is in the time of COVID. There's a certain level of craziness. I don't know. Would you want? Would you want all these athletes coming into your backyard? Given how we can live a normal life here in Australia. We don't have any issues with COVID.
Well, we try to administer the 2-week quarantine, and so that should be administered in Japan. Test on arrival or test on departure, test on arrival, and we know from even speaking to Nina Curtis a couple of weeks ago how many times she was tested in that in the period leading up to and after. I mean, there's that side of it. Continual testing through the period of the quarantine and continual period testing through the events. In that case, and looking at the amount of investment and the amount of time that's already been put into it, they've got to look at that option. But in saying that, people still are getting infected with COVID through all those measures.
People are dying.
Yeah, we know that.
Any view, Boss?
No, think of the other way. Obviously, these athletes have put everything into this for not only the last 4 years, but now 5 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
And can you take that away from them wanting to compete? If they know they can do it safely, why not go ahead with it? But would you, as a parent with your kids, we still don't know what the long-term effects of this whole thing are, and the chances of getting it might be quite slim for your children or anything like that for that matter. But how do you feel about as a nation sending a whole heap of athletes and it could become rife amongst them?
I'll say this. I'm 100% certain COVID will travel through bubbles within the Olympic Games. 100% certain there will be COVID going through the Olympic Games. They're 100% certain. Will we hear about it? Not necessarily. We know of sporting events where they've been in the bubble and it hasn't been reported.
Yes.
We know of events where COVID has
secret
occurred.
pro. We'll leave that one.
So
Damn it, we know everything.
So anyway, it's interesting. Massive fan of watching sport in the Olympics. It's one of my favourite things in the world. But massive fan of everyone being safe as well. Maybe I'm just getting old.
All right.
No, you're a conservative type of fella.
We've got 3 major issues to keep an eye on, all of which we want a positive and happy outcome for. Yeah? How's that sound?
Yeah, okay. I like it.
Righto.
Maybe we'll put our own dossier together.
We should do a dossier on BP.
Fun. Employment.
All right. Start up the slide guitar, BP.
I forgot about
Hang
all that.
on. Let me just go and get it. Hang on. Wait on.
Just start right in the middle of the song again.
All right, okay. From which part?
Going down the mine or whatever.
Go on.
The words go.
Okay.
Put that bit on. Ready? Here I go. Here I go. Ready? Go.
Running at night, jet through the sea.
Perfect.
There we go.
I'm all over it.
Down the mountains, roll a ladder me.
How did we do that?
Pleasure chatting, lads. Pleasure chatting. Another good week.
Everyone, thanks for listening.
Offline for a few days.
Be safe, mate.
Good luck.
So little time, I'm gonna make